get started. We have a really good crew here already. So thanks everybody for joining. My name's Brendan Gilhooly. I'm Vice President of Sales here at Webomates. And today we're going to take about 45 minutes, give or take, to go through one man's journey from skeptic to advocate, embracing AI in test automation. So I want to welcome Travis Parchman. He is an energizing, customer-driven software development, product management executive. He's a business leader and industry disruptor who leverages insight and innovates to drive digital business transformations and accelerates enterprise performance. Travis has held executive leadership positions at multiple organizations spanning construction, card access, facility services, electronic tolls, point of sale, video on demand, cable TV, IP video, internet services, and education technology. Travis is married with a high school age son. He is a pilot and flies around the Philadelphia area in a Piper Warrior 2. And today we're really excited to highlight his journey from a skeptic to an advocate in embracing AI test automation. Thank you for joining us today, Travis.
Well, thank you, Brendan. I'm definitely going to have you write my biography with all that data you've collected to get together later.
Yeah, and that's just the good stuff. So we're all good. Yeah, and as I mentioned, I'd like to introduce our co-founders. We have Ruchika Gupta and Aseem Bakshi on here. Aseem is our CEO. Ruchika is our COO. Aseem and Abhimanyu, who is one of our account managers, will be manning the Q&A. Again, I mentioned at the top, we'd really like this to be a interactive session. Ask the questions away. We do have a poll going, so we welcome your input and please ask away. So, well, I find myself as a sales leader that I'm fully surrounded by skeptical engineers, and as such, I do want to welcome Aseem and encourage you guys to ask those questions in the QA. And typically, we get a healthy amount of skepticism in those QA. So, bring it on. And, we really appreciate Aseem coming because from a technological perspective, he is an engineering background. He has an architecture background. He leads our AI group. So, Aseem, please say hello.
Hey, everybody. And yeah, please keep those questions coming as Brendan and Travis go over Travis's journey in using our system. Being one of the skeptical engineers myself, making me satisfied with what we're rolling out and providing to the industry is one of the challenges that the team faces. We'll be really happy to tell you of how we've been able to make an impact using the AI that we've created.
Fantastic. Appreciate that. And at the end, towards the end, we're going to talk about, using a trial, setting up a trial, because certainly what we've seen is, from an engineering perspective, they don't want to be told, they want to be shown. So we're happy to do that by setting up a free trial. And we can go through more of that a little bit later, but it's in the link. It only takes a few minutes to sign up. Just provide us with access to one of your environments on a URL, and we'll get to work right away. But in terms of the business at hand today, let's move forward. Let me try to move forward. Okay, your hosts today are Webomates, our enterprise product, and today you have again an opportunity to set up a trial version of Webo.ai. Webomates. We're on a mission to share the power of AI for your software testing needs. Webo.ai is designed to deliver enterprise-grade AI testing as a service specifically for the needs of the mid-market and startups. Webo AI is flexible, it's affordable, it's scalable as your application grows from alpha, beta to MVP. We have several use cases, that we've seen with some of our customers. TMRW down there on the right is a startup. They've used us from day one and gone through several rounds of funding. In the 9 years since the team's launched Webomates in Stamford, Connecticut, along with co-founder Ruchika, the team has earned 9 granted patents and the trust and budget of enterprise companies like AT&T, Rackspace, Equifax, in media for Comcast, and the largest healthcare and hospitality media provider called Sonify. And if you've been to Vegas, they handle a large percentage of those in-room, check-in, check-out, and entertainment, and any Hilton. So if you've been part of that, you've seen their work in that media and checkout experience. And actually, finally, we're very proud to report that the CTO of the U.S. Air Force called Webomates a world's first technology, and we continue to grow our relationship with them through several different phases of growth. Happy to share more about that later if you guys have any questions as well. So in terms of the format of our conversation today, we thought we'd cast ChatGPT in the traditional role of the traditional thought of CI/CD, and Travis, having experienced Webomates, we're going to cast him as embracing AI in test automation. So we're going to ask ChatGPT 3 questions, and then we'll ask Travis the same questions to see whether they agree or disagree. So here goes. In terms of question number 1. Looks like I went back too fast. Yeah. So we asked ChatGPT, are dev managers de facto QA? ChatGPT first says not necessarily, and goes on to say they do play a crucial role in ensuring the overall quality of the software development projects. And further, it does kind of waffle a little, says that a dev manager might take on additional responsibilities. So it goes from very definitive to maybe. So Travis, we can turn that question to you. Are dev managers de facto QA?
Hell no. I mean, it's not surprising given the large internet source of where ChatGPT gets the data that feeds its transformer model that it says what it says, because the lion's share of a lot of the material is it has a very top-down feel to it, where the development manager has the ultimate, buck stops here responsibility for things. But the reality is that's really antiquated thinking in the world of Agile and DevOps. It undermines the team self-organization and the fact that the team needs to own their work and deliver that quality. And the responsibility of the development manager is not to provide oversight. That's too late. You need to build quality into the process of creating the software result. And the development manager needs to make it so that the team knows the techniques that they can use, has the culture that's required for them to deliver high quality as they do their work. And whether that's test-driven development, behavior-driven development, a culture of high unit test coverage. And a large part of that also is the recognition that since the responsibility of the people writing the actual features and delivering the code should, in an Agile DevOps world, be the same people who are verifying that the quality of the code meets the expectations of the stakeholders, that automation is going to be a large portion of what they do. They want to have repeatable artifacts used like they do for all their other things to verify the quality of what they're delivering. Ideally, and I'm a little bit more of a zealot, as some of my Webomates colleagues know on this than many others, ideally, no one who's got a specialized responsibility just to deliver quality assurance. If there's any way for somebody who just delivers quality assurance as their specialized job, that should just not exist, if at all possible. Now, the reality is sometimes that's not possible, and some teams especially if some really high, high levels of complexity. What humans are good at is determining really high abstractions and whether it's meeting those measures of value and delivery. When it comes to the highly repetitive world of does it work, does it crash, does it do what it's supposed to do when you put this input in, there's no way we should waste the talents of people who can find high levels of abstract detail doing that type of repetitive work. It should be automated. And the development manager's job is to make it so that the teams know what I just said, value what I just said, have a culture of quality, and know that their job as they write the code, without being able to throw it over the wall over some faceless victims, that their job is to deliver quality day one out the door, and that the development manager's job is done when they have a team that learns to be that way, have that culture, not do quality assurance tasks for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, it detracts from delivering story points and the features that that you have to deliver up to your management, to your stakeholders, investors, customers. So I'm sure streamlining that and making sure that the dev managers are supported but not responsible is key there. Awesome. So let's go on to question number 2 here. I'm not doing with my switching here. I'm actually going to close the poll now. So if you want to jump in and do it, but I'll just read the results and then I'll close it. We're seeing 42% yes have considered AI for QA in 2024, 50% no, and 1 said nah, but we should. Oh, there's 2. Nah, but we should. Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'll start another one shortly as well. Appreciate that. So let's go to the question 2. So we asked ChatGPT, what do dev managers care about with respect to software testing? And let me go here. Well, it brings back a list of 10 what they call key aspects: test coverage, bug detection, test automation. It's crucial for efficient and repeatable testing. More on that later. We're looking at integration testing. We're looking at performance and load testing, security, feedback and collaboration with development tool, release readiness, efficiencies, really kind of getting down to the summary. It's a lot to cover there, but in summary, development managers care about ensuring that software development process includes thorough and effective testing practices to deliver high quality product to users. Now, I know that's something that Travis can agree with, but I guess it's a matter of how you get there. So, Travis, what say you on that?
Yeah, I mean, that particular list is a good one, and it's comprehensive. I think what it illustrates is just how broad and how many tasks there are in delivering quality software, and that it's a lot of things. And good development managers and good team members, if they've really sort of absorbed the culture of quality assurance is my job in addition to writing the features in the code, are going to embrace doing all of those things. I think that the main contribution of development managers is the inputs as well as the outcomes into making sure that happens. And I think that that's where the ChatGPT doesn't really talk about the methods by which those types of metrics are going to be positively impacted by the development manager. And I spoke to that a little bit in my first intervention, that culture is the most important thing in teams. But the teams need to say, my job is to deliver quality, preferably, and sometimes this is viewed in a negative, as a negative eat your own dog food motivation, is that if the people on the team are going to be the ones who have to get up at 2 a.m. if the thing doesn't work in production, then they're going to be highly motivated to make sure that what they put out the door has high quality, because the people who have to suffer the consequences of inattention are them. And so they need to completely absorb that ethos of quality is my job. It's not somebody else's job to bolt quality onto what I do or force me to do it against my will. It needs to be something I embrace and enjoy doing. And the development manager needs to reward that worldview, and in the forms of assignments and promotions and whatever else. Need to insist on test automation and support all the team members learning how to use them. I think this is very important. You have Selenium and JMeter, and then there's Webomates and all the various tools. The first set of that traditional world, the Webomates is introducing a very exciting new AI-driven world, but the team really needs to understand how to interact and use this tool effectively to get my job done is something the development manager needs to make sure that they do. They need to make sure that the team is actually, I've seen so many cases, including at my last job, where unit tests were being run, and when I asked, who looks at these? No one. They had gotten so routine. It's like, yes, we've written all these. We've invested all the energy in producing all of these tests, but no one is paying any attention to the results, And I say, well, look at these 4 things saying critical error. Well, nobody looks at the output. Like, then, going through the motions of producing tests, you don't incorporate into how you evaluate at the end of every day or at the end of every user story, whatever, did this work, needs to be something that team members need to recognize. You can't just write the tests and walk away. You need to be able to pay attention to the results. And you need to make sure that they're capturing how well strategically are we capturing the metrics, defect escape rates, what are the KPIs we're using to verify, are we getting better at this? Are we producing code with fewer defects that get even into whatever testing apparatus that we're using? Are we making sure that none of that code gets past which environment? And certainly, ideally, none of those defects ever make it into production. Are you measuring all those things? What is measured is what is done. And so the team needs to have a culture not only of recognizing it as the responsibility, but that they need to be paying attention to the metrics and using those to drive concrete changes of team behavior.
Fantastic. Yeah. So let's get into really part of the transformation journey, and we're going to set it up a little bit with ChatGPT by asking them, how can I solve my software testing problems? So again, it's a multifaceted approach to ChatGPT. Define clear testing objectives, allocate resources, collaboration, standardization, prioritization. Again, automation is key. Code review, test-driven development, cross-functional teams, more and more. Obviously, they're very good at providing a lot of information, and it's a lot. But Travis, we spoke at a little bit at Comcast, and we worked together at a company called Educational Advanced, and really like to get an understanding of how you addressed your automation challenges, and ultimately, became an advocate and embraced AI and test automation. So, how did you solve your testing problem when you encountered one at your organization?
Well, I mean, that's a really big list, and it illustrates that the way that I traditionally solved the problem and was still solving the problem at Comcast, and that's what most of my teams knew when I was at Comcast, is using, test cases created manually in test case creation tools, sometimes just, document management systems, and then mapping it into Jira or whatever other tools we would use. And then we were using Selenium and Cypress and JMeter and all the various other tools and people on the team. Sometimes it would rotate around team members. Sometimes it was team members would tend to do this more often than not. We were using Cucumber with the Gherkin scripts at a certain point with behavior-driven development, trying to make it so that there was a shorter path between the ways that the user stories were being expressed by the product owner. It was all in an effort to try to make it so that the cost of following through on that enormous list, was as low as possible. And, my world was the world of probably most of the audience here, and it has been for decades, is that we want to use automation. We were using automation, but we were investing a tremendous amount in the programming of that automation. And we were using test-driven development and using Cucumber and given when then scripts as a way of trying to reduce the handoff loss of information to make sure that the tests were accurate. We should measure testing effectiveness to make sure that it's working, as I said before. But we really were saying, this sucks. It's really expensive. It takes a long time, but this is how you do it. And we tried to embrace, and we're embracing, the DevOps and Agile ideas of trying to reduce the amount of specialization in the teams and having people all sort of wear the hat of getting the unfortunate responsibility of maybe taking the production incident calls for that sprint, or maybe focusing more on shoring up the lack of completeness in the test regime. When Webomates, when you guys first came to me in Comcast, I have to admit, I was extremely skeptical. I was really used to this world that sucked. It's a world that sucked, but it's a world that I knew very well and that most of my team members have been trained in, and we were successfully doing it. And while you list Comcast now as one of your customers, you didn't get there with me. You didn't. I already knew Asim. I said, I don't believe you.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So because I wasn't quite getting my head around, it seems obvious to now after 2023, the year of ChatGPT, that you would do everything with AI. What task would you not use AI if you could with? But to me, it seemed exotic and unnecessary. And we just sort of slogged through it. At Education Advanced, I got there, and there was no culture of testing at all. There wasn't an already established, there was unit tests, but they were mostly being ignored. There was no integration tests or end-to-end tests. It was all being done manually. We had people writing test cases manually and then executing on them with human observation. There was, and I didn't want to build a quality assurance team there. And I said, how can I cut out some steps? So I contacted you guys again. You guys reached out to me, and I said, all right, now I think I might have a use case where I don't have an existing solution. Convince me in ways that I be convinced at Comcast. And I have to say that once I really understood not only how much the costs were involved in editing the tests and keeping them relevant as the system evolves, especially if we're moving in an agile way where you're changing the system in fundamental ways on a regular basis, you need to be fearless in DevOps and constantly making these changes. Therefore, if you want to automate all your testing, your testing needs to be able to keep up with that fearless release as fast as you can and make sure that your quality is high at the same time as you're doing it. And so being able to introduce an entire extra sprint to doing QA the next sprint for the stories you released in the previous sprint, all the kinds of things you're forced to do serially if you're trying to use those manual methods, it seemed like if there was a way to get around that, I was all ears. And I think in our partnership, I really began to understand how powerful it was to be able to not pay all of that money for maintaining a body of thousands of tests that we had created, which is where most of the cost goes. But I think the other thing, and I critique you guys for not really selling it as much as you should, is that the fact that the initial test suite doesn't just crawl the code to see what the test should be, but actually does natural language processing on the user stories. At least if we do a good job of writing competent user stories, which we need to do whether we're using Webomates or any tool at all. That's what any agile team needs to be able to do. Well-written user stories that express what the deliverable is supposed to be, actually create the tests alongside of crawling the existing code. That also saves you lots of time of manually constructing the tests. And I fought you guys for many months on whether it did that. And when I finally understood what the whole package that I argued with you guys, you hadn't sold the parts of it that I really was most interested in well enough as an advocate. I think it really blew me away what the possibilities were with doing this thing. And it seems in the ChatGPT age that we should use AI for stuff like this. I agree now. I didn't agree then. And I think that there's so many other places, opportunities to be able to use it to reduce the handoffs and interpret the higher level abstractions that the human should spend their time doing instead of doing this repetitive stuff.
Yeah, no, we remember it well. We visited and we did a whiteboarding session, and ultimately it kind of came down to, you wanted to add in continuous testing to, CI, CD, and have the generation of the test cases come along with with the releases and as you're building them. So, and we were able to do that, to architect that with you, and ultimately, I think that's what really said, was the light bulb moment that, you didn't need to hire massive amounts of teams and training and onboarding and get new infrastructure in place and train a bunch of people on CIC methodologies. I remember you said, hey, this is going to be actually, educational for my team because they're really not in a DevOps environment. So, all those things combined, we were able to, work with your team so that, we were very much in sync in terms of your release cycle of you need to, generate the test cases as the code commits were coming, and ultimately help you speed up your development and increase the overall quality by, finding those defects earlier in the production cycle.
I think part of what you just said is just so important, which is it's not enough to convince me or my counterparts. Like if we're being real agilists, the team needs to have self-organization. A tremendous amount of the challenge at my last job, and I suspect this will be in many places, is the team needs to believe. The team are the most important skeptics, not me, in that they are used to a traditional way. It's familiar to them, even though they bitch about it. And it's they who need to understand not only their responsibilities, but how this tool could help them deliver those responsibilities. And that requires a paradigm shift in thinking. The same type of resistance I had is the resistance that the whole rest of the team has. And I think that it's important that the leader not say, I'm going to buy this product and impose it on the team. It's like, you have to convince the team that the philosophy of what this product is doing and how it can deliver is going to enable them to get their work done, rather than it just be another on the endless list of everything gets shifted to the left. It's like, no, you want to shift this to the left. It's going to make your life easier. Here's how. And you need to invest the time as a development manager, regardless of whether you use this tool or any other, in convincing them that this way of approaching the problem is going to produce higher quality results and make you happier with what your contribution to what we're doing is. And I think that was the next challenge we had as far as how to execute. It was more how to get the humans to understand the brave new world we were going into and what new opportunities they had to change to doing things that they didn't have time to do before, and make them excited by that. That was the thing that took a little bit longer.
I think also, Travis, as sort of it's become clearer what we're offering, we've been able to crystallize it down to two important, easy to understand metrics, right? The immediate impact, and you talked about that a little bit earlier, was on defect leakage, right? At the end of the day, a quality system is one that reduces bugs. Defect leakage is a very, very straightforward metric of determining how many bugs are leaking into production. If you don't have the data, start collecting the data now, and then see when you apply the system that we provide, how your defect leakage drops. And the other critical metric that you just mentioned is shift left, because, many of us are from a development background. And the one thing I never, ever wanted was for test to find 150 million bugs right at the end of my sprint. And then the dev team going completely nuts trying to fix stuff, and we're making really, really bad quality decisions because we're on a timeline we have to shift. And one of the things we've been able to do is to consistently move teams and do that shift left that everybody talks about, but nobody really knows. Everybody kind of knows what it means, but nobody really understands it, and absolutely nobody actually achieves it. We're literally implementing it with customer after customer.
A lot of shift left opposition is when it's done ham-handedly, and it's just, you now have all the jobs that we used to hire 5 people to do. It's like,
Exactly.
say, and do them the same way that the 5 people did them before, and do them in 8 hours a day instead of like never sleeping and eating. And it's like, and the reality is, shift left is not achievable unless repeatable version controlled automation is part of how you make it so that the people can do it at the smarter time in the development, but they also have to use smarter techniques. And, you know, Selenium and those things had their place in that world, and that's what we were doing. I think this represents a, you know, a sea change, not as a pun for I don't use Steve about how to approach that problem, but it's a general problem. Shift left is just, you know, a bullshit add too much work to the team for it possibly to do, unless it's also joined with a different way of thinking and the tools that make it possible for them to do all of those things as part of their work.
Agreed.
Well, again, as we started off at the top, it's not necessarily a tell me crowd when we're talking about developers and engineers and leadership in that area. It's a show me. So let's talk a little bit about what I'd like to do is I've shared in the chat. It's actually a trial registration. Just takes like 2 minutes. And if you have any questions, you know, we can support you in real time. But let's talk a little bit about, you know, how the general kind of flow of how we use AI to achieve automation. So the first step is in the setup. We're ramping up the automation. First, we access the application. We're going to generate a strategy, which basically means that our system will crawl the DOM and understand the different input elements in the URL for the application. And we will generate a strategy which will provide an estimate of the number of test cases, you know, different roles, you know, page levels, and understand from a mind map perspective what's required for appropriate coverage. And once that is set, we're going to generate the test cases. And once we generate the test cases, we're going to take feedback. What you're going to notice here is that we're going to take feedback at every step of the way, because you know, we're not here to say our AI is perfect. We're here to say that, you know, AI can take away a tremendous amount of you know, the work in the ramp up and the setup in generating test cases. But to take it from, you know, good to great, we need your feedback. And so we've designed a feedback loop to put the power of AI in your hands, and we're going to maximize our customers' domain knowledge and then ultimately free them up to focus on higher priority activities. We really like to see ourselves, and you know, we kind of mentioned, touched on this a little bit with Travis earlier. We're a force multiplier for your team, for the company. You know, well, ultimately, we're going to help deliver a higher quality application and remove the repetitive, low value activity, so you can focus your resources on delivering a faster go to market and the features that you need for your prospects and customers and stakeholders, like your past and future funding partners. Actually, so this maintenance phase, this is where, again, kind of a breakthrough came with Travis. So we'd love to kind of talk to you, have you just share a little bit about, you know, once that setup was placed, you know, and we've integrated, how do we integrate into your kind of CI/CD workflow, and, you know, what value did you find in the ability to keep the test cases and scripts maintained through the execution? Oh, you're on mute again. Not again, but
Muted myself because I talk too much. So I mean, essentially, by being able to make it so that when the user stories are written, we can get some preliminary outlines of the test cases created like earlier on in the process. It makes it so that the outlines of the tests that need to be run can be more clear to the developer that's working on them as they go along, and they can add feedback as they're also creating the feature. So that the less heartily sung part of the tool that I think eventually fit into our, we want to release to, ideally, in a full CI/CD environment, you want to release to production, during the sprint rather than waiting till the end of the sprint. So the earlier you can get a test case that you can then use to validate early during the sprint and validate that it's working, the better. You can do part of that by getting the outlines of a test. Usually you can get the best and most complete test case once all the things are done with the intended work of the sprint. But like by getting that outline there started and the team talking about it, especially the dev who's working on that feature started, that creates a great feature. And to know also that as you're making the changes, there's a regular rerun of that you can do multiple times during the sprint with the smoke test features to validate that the tests that are already in the test suite you're not breaking anything as you're introducing the changes into the environments. All those things are where there's just lots of like broken glass moments where people stop and start and wait for somebody else to give feedback, that you can reduce the obstacle to flow by using the tool as you go along. So I think that, at first, as I said, there was a lot of resistance. There was an assumption, oh, I am the only one who can see these stories in whatever repository we're working in before the sprint begins, says the traditional QA test case writer. How could a tool do that? It can only look at the running code. And the fact is, this does basically sift through the Jira repository for the upcoming sprint and can start producing the outlines of those kinds of things for what the test should be run before the sprint even begins, even though the full final tests, flesh out, a little bit later in the process, that the beginnings of whether we're on target for that. I think that is the first sort of obstacle to believing it. Can I actually do that thing? We had to get those people to say, they would complain, why is this duplicating my work? It's like, because you should stop doing it. It was a really weird, counterintuitive, conflict we were having sometimes in the team. Like, why is this thing doing what I've already done? It's like, because you don't need to do it anymore. It's hard to stop the routine of what you're used to doing. When the tool is doing it for you, it's like, yes, the fact that it's doing exactly what you were going to do is proof that it doesn't need to be done by you anymore. And you should spend your time on much more high, and there's some very important sophisticated measures of quality value. If you still need to have, and sometimes you do, need to have that validation of whether you're delivering the value of the customer, like you never had time to do. You were doing all the nitty gritty of like making sure that when you press this button, it didn't crash the page. Don't do that anymore. Spend your time worrying about like whether the aesthetic sense or the flow or the speed or performance things that automation can also do, but that there's more abstract things. Spend your time validating those higher quality user experience things instead of this, and let the tool do it. That was the evolution of this process. There was a great deal of skepticism that was possible. Now the challenge of when you do it during the sprint as you're writing the code, it still exists. There's limits on how much prognostication you can do, but as I've said in some other settings about the tool, it's about the closest thing to magic, in many of these areas that you can get. So embrace that magic and spend your times on the thing that magic can't touch.
Great. Yeah, I can see people signing up for the trial. So appreciate that. And, we'll certainly, get right on that. So, please continue to do that. And just in terms of, addressing, kind of following up on what Travis was saying, automation scripts are flaky. And so what we're bringing to the table with our AI healing is that we are able to remove the burden of this 80% of test automation is in maintenance after the automation is created. So when the automation is not up to date, software releases are delayed, and it becomes very expensive, or worse, it's passed on to your customers to find bugs to escape in production. Matter of fact, closing our last poll there, we saw that 40% saying the customers were the testers of last resort. We saw 90% were using manual testers, 80% were using automation, 40% were saying that their dev team were ad hoc and just pitching in, and 20% we're using record and play. So what we can do with Webo.ai and a trial is basically show how we can bring automation in days, not weeks and months, and remove the overhead of keeping the automation scripts up to date. So we can please, use that link. You can go in, you just go ahead and put your URL in there and you'll have access. The process is, first, we just need access to the URL. We can whitelist as well. Once you sign up, we'll be in contact. But very quickly, we're going to do that strategy. We're going to do the mind map of your application, and we're going to just generate 10 test cases with automation. That'll happen in just 24 hours. So you'll see immediate results. Again, our process is kind of, generate, and then we're going to get feedback. So we'll get feedback on that strategy. And once we get the feedback on where you want to concentrate, we will generate 40 more to have 50 total automation test cases. And that will just, take a day or two. Our system, our rated capacity is we can generate up to 2,000 test cases and scripts in a month. So we can really ramp up quickly and be up and running in a very short amount of time. So throughout the trial, once we have the test cases and scripts approved, it's a 2-month trial, and we're going to do one full automation run with the AI healing each month. So we'll run it, we'll update the test cases, we'll heal them. Your team will be free to run as many smoke tests as you like. So that's the beauty of it. You run the automation, you get a pass-fail report, and then next time we run an AI healing, we'll update those test cases and propose the defects for your review and acceptance. And how we do that, again, I just want to make sure we didn't. Yeah, no, we're all good. Okay. How we do that, from the AI healing perspective is that the AI will identify and heal the root cause for the failure in the automation scripts. The 3 most common failures are the script level issues, the locator changes, timeout changes, test data input changes, etc. Modified feature change, you've changed something, in the your UI, and the automation test script needs to be updated. So the AI healing will handle that. And of course, new features are coming in. You're releasing new features. You need to generate new test cases. As Travis, alluded to earlier, we're able to, take those release notes, use machine learning, natural language processing to, start to build, as Travis called it at the time, scaffolding for, the new test cases. And then, once there's something actually to test in the UI, we can generate the automation, on that. Ultimately, saves a tremendous amount of effort, and our customers free themselves up from these repetitive and time-consuming tasks. So yeah, please go ahead. I can see multiple new trials coming in right now, and we're very excited to do that. Happy to help anybody right now that has any questions about the sign up. I have the registration in the chat, and again, we're going to generate those 50 test cases and automation just in 24 hours, and we're going to we'll connect with you and talk to you about the process and how we can be most effective for your application. It's a 2-month trial, and we're seeing great results and very happy customers in terms of what we're able to provide for them to alleviate their biggest testing challenges. So yeah, let's talk. If you guys want, I'm just going to drop in my meeting link and my email in the chat again. But at this point, so please feel free to reach out and set up some time for further demo. We can do questions. We can really get into a technical demo. at this point, I'd also like to open it up, for questions. This is a kind of the portion where it's a little bit of a free for all. And so if you guys want to raise your hands, I can allow you to talk, or, Asim, if you have questions that you want to kind of address that have come in. I haven't had the chance to look at the Q&A, but, is there anything you can speak to that we get the conversation started?
So the last question was, how do I do a demo? It's click on the link. If you have a web application or a mobile application, in the case of a web application, give the URL of the web application, give a username and password, a test account basically, and you're off and running. We'll generate the test strategy for you. You look at it, you can change it in any way. We'll generate the test cases for you. You can modify them in any way and take it forward. Another question was around the types of testing that can be carried out. We are not just web, not just mobile. We also do set-top boxes, TVs, biomedical devices like robots, and APIs. So and native mobile and native Windows, even if that's what you would like. So basically, almost anything that could be tested is being tested already by us at this point in time. Webo.ai is more oriented towards testing mobile and user interfaces. If you have something else, message Abhimanyu or message Brendan and we'll get it going, but that's a slightly different pathway than Webo.ai, which was targeted for mobile and web applications. But what we're trying to do is to make it really, really easy for you to check it out. There's a lot of hype out there about AI can do this and AI can do that. And it's all great till you actually try it out. And then, it doesn't work. So we're saying, put your application on, right? We'll generate it for you. You literally see it happen in real time, where real time is in days, not instantaneously, but you put the application on in hours to a day, you'll have this test strategy in 10 automation test cases, 10 test cases and 10 automation test cases set up for you, 24 hours, right? You want it to then go up to 50 just to prove everything. And one day later, you'll be at 50 automation test cases. So I think it's a big deal because you can just try it out. It's completely free, right? It's a trial. It's not free forever. But it's free for the next couple of months, and you can really try it out and vet it that what we're saying real. If anybody else has any questions, just click raise your hand, and we'll just enable the audio, and you can ask the question directly if that's the way you'd like to ask a question. Anybody?
Don't be shy, jump on up. We're happy to answer your questions. Are there any skeptics still out there that have some questions? Let's get right into it. We're happy to answer the question. Here's one attendee with their hand up, and there we go. Allowed to talk. So,
can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Do you guys do back-end apps as well?
Yeah,
back-end apps, basically API. So,
Right.
I mean, by backend apps, Bhaskar, you're probably thinking, talking about API applications?
I just meant back-end code, like actually, yeah, APIs and server-side code and whatnot,
yes,
rather than like a front-end app.
Absolutely. That's what I mean by API, which is typically a wrapper for a microservice of any type. We definitely do that and do it extensively. Equifax is one major example where literally we have hundreds of it's their entire new framework that they're using. I can't talk more about it than that, but there's extensive APIs that we're working with them. For example.
Our entire back office was based of a collection of RESTful web service suites, and so that they were exercising both those as well as the GUI.
Got it. Cool.
Hi, my name is Bhaskara. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we do have almost like 4,000 test bed that simulates each test bed represents one full home that includes gateways, clients, Wi-Fi simulators, all of that stuff. what we are looking for is I'm trying to see the benefit of this one. Obviously, definitely there is. We started something internal called Clicks Buddy, but however, we are trying to see what we can use from both the AI perspective. We do have a lot of use cases that includes, for example, recovering CPE devices with certain known firmwares with the process that are already documented in our Jira. Similarly, we are trying to create this virtual assistant so that it can self-help all our customers. And then if the issues are resolved, it will create Jira tickets and resolves it. But if they are not resolved, it will create tickets and leave it in open state so that our special task force can jump in and resolve. We do have a lot of remote controls for all this test system. That includes remotely can view the video, or you can remotely power cycle, or you can remotely log in. So with this all this infrastructure, we are trying to automate 100% if possible.
So
Do you think it's
Bhaskara,
workable?
what would happen in this particular case, and we should probably go in a direct call between you, me, and Brendan and Abhimanyu. So for another customer, or possibly the same customer, they have their own automation system called Automatics, and we're
Yeah,
doing.
that's my peer. Yeah.
Okay, so we're doing an integration where what we're doing is we're not an automation company. We happen to spit out code in Selenium, but we also talk to Browser Stack. We also talk to Cypress. We also talk to. So in your case, you've already built a home automation simulation jig and home automation system. And what's needed to be done is for us to take our AI, which basically our AI talks to our no code, low code system, which then spits out, in the case of Selenium, Java code for Selenium. In the case of Automatics, we'll spit out code that is Automatics compliant code. In your case, we would spit out code that's compliant with your interface. And I think that's the logical way to do it, since you've already done the heavy lifting of effectively creating an automation system for the home environment. But that's based on, 1 minute of analysis based on what you said. This is obviously a larger conversation, but if I can get the same separation that I could see in the case of Automatics, it'll be basically a similar piece, because our core ability is the ability to take your user stories, the ability to take your user interfaces, and to generate the test strategy, then the test case, and then from the test case, we generate the code. And in our most of the time, we generated to automation systems that we're already integrated with. In your case, we would probably integrate with your automation system. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, yeah. But at the same time, I think probably it's worth making a call, because our automatics is focused on automation of the test cases, whereas this one is like maintenance, self-help of the devices that we should be able to get some.
Yep.
We can use both, basically automatics as well as our
Perfect.
use case.
Would be a wonderful call, and I look forward to it. Again, I don't know enough yet, so I am a little bit extrapolating based on what I know. I need to learn a little bit more before I can give you a definitive answer.
Sure.
And I'll say we're really excited for that conversation. And what I've seen is, as kind of the sales guy coming into these things, is our absolute competence and excellence in that area of media. And I'll toot a Seam's horn, but he had led teams with Ruchika that won 2 technical Emmys in media development. So we'll certainly follow up. I hope we have the opportunity to kind of
but home
drill down
automation
and talk a little
is
bit
not
more.
media, Brendan. A slightly different category that Bhaskar is talking about.
So,
When we started talking about automatics, I guess that's where I got the cue from.
No,
But
it's
anyways,
different. But yes, Bhaskar, we should absolutely get onto a call. I think at the minimum, it's worth a conversation.
Yeah,
just,
sure.
just to add a little bit to that, I mean, I'm as much as I'm expressing my enthusiasm for the product, I'm not being compensated by Webomates. But I'm going to say this. I use that as a disclaimer first to say I'm not being compensated by Webomates. I don't work for Webomates. When I was at Education Advanced, there was a lot of really early skepticism, as I said there. And there were a lot of long extended meetings with whiteboarding sessions and diagrams and sequence diagrams explaining how what we wanted was different, or what we were trying to explore. And it turned out some of the stuff was already there, but like we were trying to explore this. I have never had a vendor that has been as willing to partner with us as we figured out how we needed to describe the nature of our problem, and created some new approaches that they had not, or expedited some approaches that they've been thinking about in order to deal with the use cases that we were presenting, even though we were a relatively small customer. So Bhaskara, good to hear from you again, sir. But
Yeah, Travis, yeah. Nice to hear from you after a long time, from XRE days to now.
but I have to say that, you know, when you have a great partnership with a vendor, it's so satisfying when you're at a large company like Comcast to be able to have somebody who's capable of grasping what you're trying to do and understanding, yes, this might be a custom integration, and that's not something that Webomates is afraid to think about. And that was really, you know, and we didn't really need anything really sophisticated at Education Advanced, but I appreciated the technical partnership and the architectural partnership as we worked through what we were trying to do. And we were just a little tiny company, so imagine what they would do for Comcast.
That's great.
And we do. Yeah. So is there any more hand raisers? Really appreciate the question, and we'll certainly follow up. We're kind of running down to coming up on an hour. We promised 45 minutes, but we always try to leave this like 15, 20 minutes for this kind of free-flowing conversation. We love it, but we'll give it a few more seconds or so. Please raise your hand. If I don't see any, we'll just kind of wrap it up and thank everybody for coming. Tell your friends. We're happy to jump on a call and talk about how we can address your most complex issues and help your teams deliver higher quality software faster. So with that, I certainly would like to thank Travis for joining us today and sharing his experience. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Very productive conversation. And yeah, we'll just make it a wrap here. Any other closing words, Asim, before we shut her down?
I think I'll just repeat what I said earlier. If you have even the faintest sort of like desire to explore AI, just try it out. It costs nothing. If you have a web application or a mobile application, we've made it really, really easy. And if it isn't easy, give Abhimanyu a call or give Brendan a call, and we'll literally talk you through it on how to onboard. And you'll be on board tomorrow. And you can just try it out and see if this truly is something that's of value to you. We've worked for a long time in AI to get to the point that we can provide these tools to you. Please use them.
And with that, thank you all so much. And until we meet again, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye all.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for the great presentation.
Our pleasure, Bhaskara. Bye.
Yeah, take care. Yeah, bye.